Dear Virus, I was wondering if you were coming for a visit. Thanks for the advance warning. I'm appreciative of all the information I received of your upcoming arrival. I'm grateful for the wisdom that guided me during your visit. And I'm more grateful for the mild symptoms and gentle whispers for deeper self-care. As my mentor, Dr. Bill Pettit, says, I received your symptoms as love letters from my body. I want people to know that your visit can be gentle. I want people to know that your visit can be temporary, just like everything else that passes through us, just like all of our thoughts, just like all of our experiences. I was worried that if I told people that I was experiencing your variety of symptoms, that I could be adding more worry to the world. I've read and heard the fearful and worried responses of others sharing their journeys. I was resistant to the possibility of hearing worry from friends and family. You were the catalyst for some meaningful insights. I realized that I was concerned about my own worried thoughts. Then a beautiful glimmer of light came through the cracks of my thinking. I can have worried thoughts and not always have to have the worried feelings that typically accompany the thoughts. I became aware of the thoughts as separate from myself. Thoughts are there and I'm here. It's really possible to have worried thoughts and not have the experience of worry. How powerful. Then I had another insight. Who am I to think that I am responsible for the worry of others? The thinking, feeling, and experience of others is not up to me. Every person has their own perspective of life from their own level of understanding. True freedom. With love and gratitude, Ellen.
That was my mother. That was Ellen Friedman, and she is this week's guest on the Alter Your Health podcast. This is your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. And my name is Dr. Benjamin Alter. I'm the host of this podcast. I'm also a licensed naturopathic doctor, and I practice holistic lifestyle medicine all around the world. You can find out more at www.alter.health. And today I am talking with my mother. And what you just heard was her reciting a little letter that she wrote, a little love letter, if you will, to her virus. That's right, she wrote a love letter to her virus, the quote-unquote coronavirus. We're not sure actually if she was infected with the novel coronavirus. She was never tested, but that really doesn't make a difference. This conversation is about shifting perspectives. This conversation is about insights. This conversation is about looking at our health and our life through a new lens. And that's what my mom offers us today. And I was just really touched the first time that I read this letter that my mom actually posted on social media, which was a new thing for her to share. And so we talk about this new insight that she had while she was infected, if you will, with this virus. We also talk about the symptoms as being messages from her body, and really being gentle with herself was a key in healing and connecting with the wisdom that was guiding her to take really good care of herself and allow her body to heal naturally. So, by the way, your body does heal naturally. You do have a powerful innate immune system, and when we create an optimal environment with all of our lifestyle practices that we know, from food to hydration to movement and sleep, and also to healthy, peaceful thinking, our body functions really well. And that looks like an optimal, vibrant immune system that's able to conquer any sort of infection. So I do hope that you come away from this conversation with a new perspective, a shift of thinking, and insight. It is possible. And if you'd like to learn more about my mother, the amazing Ellen Friedman, you can find out more on her website, www.healinghousecalls.com. Healinghousecalls.com. And yeah, my mom is a soul-centered professional coach. She's also a 3 principles practitioner. We talk about the 3 principles, of course, in this conversation: mind, consciousness, and thought, and how understanding these principles and how they really lead to our human experience is a total game changer. It has been for me, it has been for her, it has been for really everyone that I know who takes the dive into this understanding. So, with that being said, let's all put our feet on the ground. Let's receive a breath. Let's be in the present moment here and now and enjoy this conversation with my mother, Ellen Friedman. Hey, Mom, welcome back to the Alter Your Health podcast.
It's great to be back. We talked about wanting to explore more around illness, and who knew that this is what we were going to be talking about.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah, we kind of scratched the surface in your last episode when you were the guest here, when you were in town, and we've talked about getting you back on the podcast. And when you wrote your little letter, your love letter to your virus, I thought, wow, this is, obviously this is your perspective in throughout life. It's not new to me per se, but it's new to a lot of us. And I think that the world is definitely ripe and ready to have insights around this way of thinking, a new way of thinking relating to health, relating to viruses and foreign invaders of these sorts, and relating to life itself.
Yeah. You say it's not new, but it's familiar to you, but it's not the way I've always seen life, for sure. It's not the way I've always seen illness.
Totally.
So I
And
want to make that clear, that this is not like how, you weren't raised with this understanding from me of health and illness, and certainly it's new to me in the last several years.
yes, 100%. And the other thing that's, coming to mind for me right now is just how you put words on it beautifully in your letter. But the feeling that is carried through those words is also very familiar, and and I think it just resonates. So it's beyond just the words written. It's like, oh yeah, that feels good.
Mhm. Yeah, I actually woke up one morning and felt this letter kind of be written through me, and I just knew I had to write it down. I don't write a lot, but this I knew I had to write down.
Yeah,
So
no, I know that you don't write a lot. So when I saw a Facebook post with your letter, I was like, wow, is it, you like to share things of other people's, and it was the
mhm,
first time I had seen you share something of your own, which was really
mhm,
nice. And maybe we should just set the stage for where this letter came from. Obviously, don't need to go too far back in
mhm.
history because we like living in the present moment. But yeah, just set the stage of your experience with the virus, that and how you felt and navigated, and the insights that you had throughout your experience.
Well, I think I'm going to start with the letter and then go
Okay.
from there. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah. Start with the
Okay.
letter and then we'll trace our
Okay.
steps as we need to.
Yeah. Okay, great. Dear virus, I was wondering if you were coming for a visit. Thanks for the advance warning. I'm appreciative of all the information I received of your upcoming arrival. I'm grateful for the wisdom that guided me during your visit. And I'm more grateful for the mild symptoms and gentle whispers for deeper self-care. As my mentor, Dr. Bill Pettit says, I received your symptoms as love letters from my body. I want people to know that your visit can be gentle. I want people to know that your visit can be temporary, just like everything else that passes through us, just like all of our thoughts, just like all of our experiences. I was worried that if I told people that I was experiencing your variety of symptoms, that I could be adding more worry to the world. I've read and heard the fearful and worried responses of others sharing their journeys. I was resistant to the possibility of hearing worry from friends and family. You were the catalyst for some meaningful insights. I realized that I was concerned about my own worried thoughts. Then a beautiful glimmer of light came through the cracks of my thinking. I can have worried thoughts and not always have to have the worried feelings that typically accompany the thoughts. I became aware of the thoughts as separate from myself. Thoughts are there and I'm here. It's really possible to have worried thoughts and not have the experience of worry. How powerful. Then I had another insight. Who am I to think that I am responsible for the worry of others? The thinking, feeling, and experience of others is not up to me. Every person has their own perspective of life from their own level of understanding. True freedom. With love and gratitude, Ellen.
Yeah, thank you for reading it again. I read it through a couple of times, but it was good to hear it coming from your voice, and I heard it differently. And
Yeah.
um, I think the first thing that stands out, obviously, is that message of gentleness and the message of peace, which is definitely not the message that is typically shared with this virus for sure, but any illness, usually it's something to fear, something to protect ourselves from, and something to do our due diligence to avoid catching. And then if we do catch it, then it usually comes with this psychological virus as well of, oh, shoot, what's going to happen? And then that kind of spins us into this psychosomatic mind body experience that we know as being ill and unwell. Um, so I know you have had those kind of you know low points in your body and in your mind. We all have our low points, but where did this new insight and new perspective come from?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say, I address it as the virus because although I had, many of the coronavirus symptoms, I never got tested.
Right.
It didn't matter to me what label the virus had. My doctor said that I didn't, have severe enough symptoms to justify the testing. And frankly, the testing is so unreliable that it just didn't mean anything to me to have a label. Um, so as you know, I've been deepening my understanding of the teaching of Sydney Banks, the three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. And it was so beautiful, Benjamin, that I didn't do anything to prepare. I just saw this experience that I had this past month as a reflection of my understanding of how life happens, how we experience life, whether we're experiencing a relationship, whether we're experiencing our health, whether we're experiencing anything in life, that it's inside out. And so I was suspecting that I would be exposed because Jerry had his own variety of symptoms, and my husband, and so I just I just knew that I knew it was possible through him, and I knew, or I just knew it was possible even though I was staying at home and doing all the things that I felt were appropriate to do. I just thought that I might, and and so I went hiking. I had a great hike one morning, and I got home, and um, I had to drop something off at my mom's. And as soon as I got in the car from coming back from her, and I had done all the appropriate things to protect her, just in case I was a carrier, I started feeling ill, and I just came home, and I just was slammed with the headache and body aches, and I just knew it was temporary. Even
Well,
if I ended,
yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like, of course you knew, intellectually that it was temporary because
right.
no one gets sick and stays sick, but at the same time, um,
But that was the
it's
difference.
yeah,
I'm going to interrupt you. Like, that's the difference. There was something that dropped below the intellect. Like, I knew inside of me
right.
that that the symptoms were going to be temporary, that I would have no idea how long they were going to last. I would have no idea if I might have to go to the hospital, when I would go to the hospital, how would I know? And I want to say, like, even though that letter was from a very gentle place, there were moments that, after reading stuff or hearing other people's stories of more severe illness, I would get like chest pressure, and I'd be like, oh, and I'd be like, I'll know. It was like I just was like, I'll know if I need to do anything with this. Oh, lay on your stomach. Like, my body would just go like, lay on your stomach, exercise, let your diaphragm work from on your belly. Like, I know that works. I've heard that works, and I know that works. That works, but I know it works a different part of your lungs. Um, my body temperature was lower than normal, and I knew viruses, get burnt out in a little bit higher body temperature. And so, I called you and you were like, take a sauna. And I was like, of course. And then of course I felt better after I took the sauna. So it's like my body's wisdom, those love letters were just rest, sauna, more fluids,
Mhm.
more zinc.
Yeah, so I know that you have obviously an intimate connection and relationship with your body, and the the messages that it's continuously giving you. And would you say that in this most recent experience there was like a new depth to that?
Mm.
Is that what I'm hearing? And and yeah,
Yeah, there was a new depth, because like when you said that, even a year ago, I would have gone like, well, why didn't you remember? Like, I would have beat myself up for not remembering to use the sauna that I have right in my garage. Or I would have had judgment about what I did or didn't do.
yeah, and
um
I'll interrupt you here because I'm used to you calling me up and saying, "What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? What should I do?" And obviously the what should I
mm,
do is coming from this outside and like I've got to fix something. Something's wrong. Something needs to be fixed. But
mm,
I hear that in this most recent experience that there
mm,
was a total acceptance which allowed you to be more attuned to those subtle messages of just being guided. If it was being guided to pick up the phone and call me, or I think maybe I called you and checked in on you, and like I gave you one prescription to get into the sauna rather than this list of to-dos, because it sounds like you had more of an level of acceptance of what was
mhm,
going on, so therefore you were
mhm,
more tuned
mhm,
in and open to the wisdom
mhm,
that was coming through you.
mhm. Yeah, and I think that's a really great point to share. Like, I didn't do anything to accept what was going on, because I understand how my experience is created, acceptance was an outcome. It was a natural thing that happened because I just understand that when I'm tense and upset, my body's healing system shuts down. So it made no sense.
So
It
it's
made
just,
no.
so if I hear you, then just that kind of intellectual connecting the dots for you of, because we say it all the time, and people probably have heard it all the time. Stress shuts down your immune system. Stress blocks your body's
Mhm,
ability to heal. And this came up, if I recall, just briefly in our last conversation on the podcast. That fact can stress people out and can like
mm,
wind people
mhm,
up in stress rather
mhm,
than relax people.
mhm,
So could you talk about how you take that
mhm,
information that stress suppresses the immune system and stress blocks your body's ability to
mhm.
heal, take that information and then relax with it rather than get wound
Yeah,
up with it?
yeah. Well, I think when you know something beyond the intellect, it then acceptance and relaxation is a natural result. So I knew it beyond the intellect.
How
It
do you know
wasn't.
something beyond the intellect? I'll just kind of,
Yeah, so it comes with it comes with a feeling of knowing. The
what does
feeling
that
of
feel like?
I think we all have our individual way of knowing what that we it's like we all have. Some people call it a gut feeling. Some people call it like a sensation in their heart space. It's just like you there's things I used to believe about life. Like I used to believe or want to believe things that, that there was a universal intelligence, that the stress was harmful for your body. I no longer care about what I really believe anymore. I'm just connected to what I know. I know I know that gravity happens 100% of the time. If I pick something up and let it go, 100% of the time it's going to drop. I have that same knowing about how I experience my health. And let me say that doesn't make me immune from having fear and worry move through, but it moves through. And it's like, so the first time I had like a little bit of shortness of breath and pressure on my chest, like I had this like it was almost like an alert. It was like, pay attention here. And then it was like, if I started thinking about it, it got bigger. It's like I amplified the symptoms. And I was like, oh, I'm amplifying. I could feel that I was amplifying the symptoms. And so I was just like, then I just went into, there was another way. And in the moment, I'm guided what the other way was. And, and, and I just like checked in deeper. It was like, I'm okay. And if I'm not, I will know it. Oh, get a glass of water. Oh, lay down. Oh, lay down on your stomach. Oh, think about your big toe instead of your lungs. I don't know, like things. It's so it's so beautiful to be living from a place of knowing that we're just naturally guided moment to moment of what's next. And and again, I just want to emphasize, like, I had some worried thoughts. I had some um what ifs, but they were just like waves. They were just like little waves in the ocean rather than rather than tsunamis that would have hit before.
So I know I kind of already asked this in so
That's
many
okay.
ways before, and I'm just asking what I presume is on a lot of people's mind when they hear
Okay.
you say that. It's like how, the how.
Mhm.
How do you let go of the worries?
Mhm.
Um,
So
because that's
it's not.
not, I feel like that for a lot of us, that's not our human nature. That's not our
Mhm.
tendency. When we're worried about
Mhm.
something, we
Mhm.
latch onto it because we want to correct it or fix it or resolve something.
Yeah, yeah. So when I first learned about letting go, it was like an active process. It was something that I had to do to
Yeah,
change
like a
or fix something.
visualization or a
Tons of ways to let go.
meditation or
Yeah, 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 yeah. There's tons of ways to let go. But it would be so momentary and temporary. So I never really had like long-term success with any of that. And so I guess I just have experience that I add to when I add to discomfort, when I add worry or thought to discomfort, I amplify it. I make it bigger. And I know that happens 100% of the time. So if I'm in it and I have the consciousness and awareness in the moment to see that I'm the one adding to my symptoms, adding to my experience of symptoms, then it just naturally lets go. I love that you're asking this question because it it just lets go from understanding. And if I if I add some more what ifs to it, at some point, I'm riding the train of worry and fear, and at some point the uncomfortable feeling, like I can't get rid of it because that adds to it too. But at some point I go, oh yeah, it's just gonna go away. Because that happens 100% of the time too. Feelings just go. Symptoms just go.
Mm.
It just goes on their own, left alone. And as I said, as a reminder, anything else before I go on? Because you know me, I can get on the talking chain train and go on and on. But I want to talk about fear at some point.
Well, I'm just thinking about your experience, and you were saying how nothing lasts forever, right? Everything changes, everything's fluid. But you had this viral illness, which once again, I'm glad that you brought up that we don't know it was, coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, and it doesn't matter. And there's, 380 trillion viruses in and on our bodies at any given point in time. And it's not, we're familiar with the germ theory and the terrain theory and all of that kind of stuff. So that's important. And also, you know, I know we talked about this briefly about how you do tend to get these kind of acute like cold flu kind of illnesses a few times a year. And usually they last a day or two. And usually they're more intense in their symptoms. So, you had visitor, this lingering visitor with you for much longer than you usually come down with anything. So I'm
That
just
was
curious.
really interesting. Yeah, that was really interesting. When it didn't go away in the 24 to 36 hours that it usually did, then I knew that it was something different than I,
Yeah, so I'm just
experienced.
curious, like, if we could like go back and kind of analyze, not that we like to analyze in this understanding, but if we could just kind of do like a play by play a little bit of your thinking and relationship with what was going on, because you said you had certainly worried thoughts and you had what if thoughts, and you're a human being, so of course you had those thoughts. But um you
Actually,
know
it's funny that you say that because I wasn't really worried about getting it. I was kind of like, Well, I guess this is another knowing that I had. I sensed that I have a really strong immune system.
That's because you follow all your Dr. Sun's orders.
Yes. And I also, I had recently read like that Zach Bush is sharing about like how meaningful the gut biome is in healing anything. And it was like, I know my gut biome is great. I know my psychological well-being is great. And I just, so there wasn't, it was like, if I'm going to get this, then I want to mount an antibody so that I can, go visit grandchildren and not be concerned about,
Yeah.
passing virus.
Well, I think that's
Um,
really important right there, is just having like an appreciation of the
mhm,
virus as well. Like, wow, that like this is fortifying me. Like that
mhm,
mindset in that.
mhm, mhm. You know what? I've healed 3 autoimmune diseases. So like, of course my body's going to heal a virus. Like it was just like there was just no question. There was just no question about it. And and um what was really interesting about this is that, okay, so I it's hard for me to go back and do a play by play because I have
Yeah.
just different moments, pass through, um but the symptoms were symptoms that I've really never experienced to the depth that I had in terms of like, so with my other illness things, I have this a headache that comes with it too. But this headache was intense. And I had one thought. I did have one thought. Well, if this is corona and I like, how am I going to deal with this headache for 2 or 3 weeks? Like 3 weeks I was at the moment. And then I was like,
You had that thought because the news told you that this virus lasts for 2 or 3 weeks, or is that like where it came from?
well, because well, and I have a friend of mine, friends of mine who've had it, who were much sicker than I was too.
Hmm.
So, I remember like, especially just a beautiful story of one of my mentors, and he talks about waking up on day 18 or something, and and the news, everything that I had heard. So I had that, and I was just like in that moment, I knew it wasn't helpful. Like I just knew in that moment it wasn't helpful to think, how am I going to do this headache for for any amount of days beyond one? It wasn't helpful. So when I saw that it wasn't helpful, it was like having a thought bubble, and it was like just dissolve the thought bubble because like it, it it doesn't make sense to keep my hand on a hot stove. It doesn't make sense to put a fork in an electrical outlet. It doesn't make the same sense to hang on to something that isn't helpful.
Yeah,
Which
100%.
sounds, as I say that, like I never knew that before. I
Yeah.
never knew that before, but I know that now. And did I still hang on? I still hung on, and at some point, the self, what's it? What do we call the needle went into the thought bubble and it dissolved. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I didn't have scary or negative experiences, but they were so brief. They were so short, and it was the feeling of tension in my body that would say we're heading down a direction that's not going to be helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, I like your thought bubble needle analogy because it just lets me know that, despite how long a thought bubble is hovering or how big a thought bubble gets or the contents within the thought bubble, like we always have the needle to like totally deflate it and totally dissolve it. And that
And
needle,
it,
like what is that needle? Like if you were
mhm,
to
mhm.
define the needle that we,
Consciousness.
consciousness.
Yeah, awareness. Just see, I don't actually go, okay. There's the needle. Pick it up.
Where's the needle? Someone
Yeah,
give me the
yeah,
needle.
it's not a technique. It's not a
Yeah.
technique. It's just a metaphor for as soon as I have consciousness that that's what's going on, the awareness itself, the principle of consciousness dissolves the thought. Like, that's amazing. It's so simple.
Hmm.
And we can complicate it with lots of techniques and
I just had this memory. I don't
yeah.
think I shared this dream with you, Mom, but it's a similar metaphor. I had this dream a couple months ago that I was in like a public restroom, and I went into like a bathroom stall, and it was just a mess. And it was, poop everywhere. And I was like, ew, but I really had to go to the bathroom. And I was just like, trying to navigate this smelly, ugly bathroom stall.
Wow.
And then I was trying to figure out, I was like, okay, I'm done and I need to flush. And I was like looking, I was like, how do I flush? And I was like gonna trying to step on the flush lever because I wasn't touching it. And it wasn't working. And finally I was like, oh, screw it. And I turned my back and it flushed. And it was a self-flushing, it was an automatic flushing toilet. And I woke up from that thinking like, having that same awareness of, wow, like sometimes all I've
Mm,
got to do is like turn my back and look another way and the shit
right,
disappears.
right. Right. That's a great metaphor. We have an automatic flushing system. Like, that's how it works. It just goes on its own. We
Yeah.
don't even have to turn our back.
Yeah. So back to your
Yeah.
needle, it's like you're not picking up anything and doing anything.
No, it's just a
The needle
metaphor
is
for.
there and it's yeah. It's like the needle is built into the thought bubble.
Mhm, mhm. And the other thing is, because I know that this is how my experience is created, I'm just less bothered by discomfort. I'm less bothered by physical discomfort. Now, I'm not, listen, there were many moments where I was, like grabbing my head, pulling my hair, you know, trying to get away from my pain. But generally I'm less, because when I do that, when I start to get tense about about symptoms, like I literally feel them expand. And
Yeah.
it's like there were actually moments where I could feel my symptoms increase with an inhale and decrease with an exhale. It was wild. Like, yeah, sympathetic, taking a deep breath. I could feel the tension, the headache go, and then it was like, oh, more exhalation, more relaxation. Like, it was just natural to do that. And so if I know that's how it goes, and I guess I also have a deeper knowing that like I'm okay no matter what. No matter what. ER, ICU, ventilator, like there's some part of me that can't that is
Yeah. Well, I hear
that
you,
can't,
and
yeah.
I'm also hearing once again kind of the
Sure.
maybe thoughts that aren't necessarily my thoughts, but kind of the collective
Sure.
response to I'm okay no matter what. It's like, well, yeah, Ellen, but you're, cozy in your home and, you don't have any financial stress or worries and you don't have any abusive relationships and,
Mhm.
people can stack up their negative circumstances and yeah, so
And and even with lots of negative circumstances, there's still we can still know that we're okay. In fact, it was interesting because this happened probably about a week before I got sick. About a week before I get sick, I was worried about my husband Jerry's symptoms and illness. And I would say everyone in my immediate family, I had lots of stuff that I could be worried about.
even me.
Everyone. Yeah. Yeah. No,
You can
it
always
was,
worry about me.
well, but it was like, it was like, there was worry about, and it was like, I mean, I had wild stories going about everyone in my immediate circle, family. And even in that, I knew that I was making it up. I knew that it would pass. I knew that I was caught up. I knew that I had masterfully orchestrated, directed, and produced the wildest horror film of my life. Like that. But see, I knew I was the creator of it. So under it, it was like I just knew, even though there was all this squeeze, there was still something kind of, there was some sort of peace, like the calm in the center of the storm, or the
Mm,
calm under the ocean waves. Like
yeah.
just I just knew that was there too.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that you've got this new, deep understanding of your conscious creation of your experience. And I'm just curious how you communicate to maybe someone in adverse situations, whether it's, finances or health or
Mhm.
relationships,
It's-
that, you know, if we say that, you are the creator of your experience, and someone's in a totally lifelong terrible, horrible experience, then like that can weigh heavy on someone. And I'm just curious how you communicate. I know obviously you work with clients and coaching and stuff. So
Yeah, it's just everyone's different. And I just know that same thing that guides me in the moment of what to do with my body will guide me to know what to share with the person in front of me. Um, it's so fun to never know what's going to what's going to be, what
yeah,
I'm going to hear to see. And
that's
because the
not
other thing,
satisfying my
I
my
know,
question.
but
That's
this,
not.
I know, but you know what? Like, I just heard something this morning. Let me just see if I can pull it up again. In fact, think I wrote it down, but I think I threw it away. Um, Let me
But
just see it.
is it
Yeah.
is it
So no,
okay?
but it's, yeah, but just so it's just like, I like people. I'm more curious about what people like, everything that I described. I don't know, all the gazillion coaches that I've worked with, they could have all told me the same thing, but it's like, until I saw it for myself, it didn't make a difference. So I just help people see where it is that they see it for themselves already. Like, even in the worst case scenarios, people have a connection with, I mean, everyone's just seeking some sort of level of peace, some variety of peace or love. So unconditional love and unconditional peace. And so
Yeah. Well,
sometimes
it's
we
funny
were
that I'm asking you this because I just had a conversation with someone an hour ago, um, a, who was communicating and sharing her adverse experience, and what came through me to share was, well, is it really like terrible 100% of the time?
Mhm.
Like, is it really completely awful 100% of the time? Because I'm with you right now, and you seem really connected and peaceful. Um, so I think
Yeah,
that's
but it can feel like that 100% of the time, because we're the ones that are spinning. We're the ones on the treadmill and the of our minds,
right. So even
adding
if
and
even
repeating.
if we're traumatized, like, so to speak, quote unquote, with physical abuse 10% of our lives, we can create that trauma 100% of our lives if we choose to, if we work hard
Mhm.
enough in our
Well,
thinking.
and it doesn't, it doesn't even have to take it's not even hard work. It's just kind of a natural. It's kind of like one of my clients said, I'm just spring loaded to the negative. I'm just spring loaded to worry. And I just think that's part of the human condition that we are. So, but if that's the way it works, if that's the way it works, that we can easily see worry and fear and negativity, then there's nothing to change about it. We just see that's the way it works.
Mm.
Um, I want to come back to the fear thing because I want to
Oh,
share
yeah.
this. So there's so many acronyms for fear, that people have shared.
False
False,
evidence appearing real or
appearing
whatever.
real, yeah, yeah. And Kelly Turner, who wrote Radical Remission and I think her new book Radical Hope,
Mm.
um, she shares a new. I love her new understanding of fear, or her new acronym for fear: forgetting every available resource.
Mm.
And it just reminds me that in the moment, we get exactly what we need. We never get it the moment before. We never get it when we're looking for it. But in the moment, it just gets revealed.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
like
for
that.
me, it's yeah. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, go ahead for you.
Yeah, for me, that resource is really the connection to the divine, to spirit, to divine mind, universal energy. Like when I when I'm in fear, I have temporarily forgotten
Yeah.
that connection.
Yeah, that's a great acronym because I think a lot of people who are spring loaded to fear, if you will, who just have a tendency to be in fear, have a tendency to also try and micromanage their fear and fix the fear before there's something to be afraid of to prevent fear.
Mm,
But the acronym again was forgetting every available resource. What that entails is that the resources are available only in the moment. So it's like we
mhm.
can't really prevent fear. We can only be in the moment with fear and remember our available resources.
I love that. I love that. And I was like, well, I want an acronym for faith. What would be an acronym for faith? And so what I heard was faith is feeling awe in the heart.
Feeling awe in the heart. So
I
that,
just
yeah, that is, I guess that could be an anecdote, antidote. I always misuse those words. An antidote to fear is faith, feeling awe in the heart, in the moment. Because once again, that's the only, I
Mhm.
guess the only time you can feel anything is in the moment.
Well, you're only feeling what is where your thinking is in the moment, right?
Yeah.
100% of the time. It
Yeah.
only works that way. And and if we can just, like Sid Banks says, learn to not be afraid of our own experience, that one thing would change the world. Like knowing that everything is passing through, viruses, thoughts, worries, fear, they're all passing through. Even happiness and fun, that's passing through too.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
what the Sid Banks quote again is,
if people
I
could
always, yeah.
if people could learn to never be afraid of their own experience, that one thing would change the world.
Yeah, and that came up earlier in my mind, and the quote is speaking to my interpretation of the quote is speaking to kind of the psychological, emotional experience, if you will. But I think it also translates into the physical, like with regard to the illness. And if we can really trust our body and not be afraid of what our body is doing or not doing, then that is also a total game changer, which it
Mhm.
sounds like was part of
But
your.
fear is fear. The feeling of fear, whether it's a physical, related to a physical sensation, or whether it's related to a mental or emotional sensation, a mental thought, it's still the experience of fear,
Yeah,
whether
but
it's a.
if we cultivate a level of trust and understanding for our body to do what it needs to do, in addition to our mind to do what it needs to do
Mhm,
in any moment.
mhm,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, that it's just
mhm,
one
mhm.
emotion. Um,
Yeah, you bring up a great point about cultivating trust. So, um,
yeah, that might not be the best
well,
language,
no,
but
no, no. I mean, I spent 10 months cultivating trust about 12 years ago. And, I had a daily affirmation, and tracked where I was trust.
yeah.
I did a lot of that, and it was helpful. But all I ever saw was when I didn't trust. Like,
Mhm.
I know that's not, I shouldn't say it that way, but I noticed. I mean, I was just more, notice. And so for me, like, there's so much freedom, and like, I don't, when I trust, I have
Yeah, it's
one
already there.
experience of life. Well, when I trust, I have one experience of life, and when I don't trust, I have another experience. And freedom is that I don't always trust.
Yeah.
And then I just have the experience of not trusting, which feels wobbly, and that wakes me up to the fact that I'm not trusting. That dissolves the thought bubble.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's already in there. When I
Mhm.
said cultivating trust, it's like, oh, I gotta
Yeah,
find it somewhere.
right.
Um, well, so um, what else, Mom? What else? What other insights and what else do you feel like this experience that you've had with your passing visitor of the virus has offered you, and what do you think is important for kind of the general public to know um, about their mind and their health and their mind and their life?
Mhm. Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking about, like, I started to tell you, I don't know if I went into it, that I had like maybe three different like relapses. I was like, oh, I'm feeling better. And I would go take like a 10-minute walk, and I'd come back and just go like hit the bed for another couple days. and and it was so like, and not even too long ago, I would have been, it wasn't wisdom that guided you to take a walk. You shouldn't have, I would have just beaten myself up about that. It was like, it felt like a good idea to take a walk. And then my body was like, well, maybe it wasn't a good idea. And it was just like, it was like sharing it with you is deepening my understanding of my own experience. And
When you said you had a few relapses, the first thing that popped into my mind was like extra credit. Like,
well, it was just, yeah, it was really interesting. Like, I never I was like, okay, it's back. I'll know when I can get up again. And this is the other thing, the other lesson that I had. It was like, no pushing. Like, I mastered underdoing.
which is something, yeah,
It's
something
something to
you,
be said for any human being.
especially my mother, who's the overdoer. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I'm just like, I had some client sessions from the bed. I'd listen to webinars, participated in webinars from sitting in bed. It was just like, this is where it feels better to be. And in between,
Mhm.
I'd lay down, sometimes sleep, often sleep, and sometimes
Yeah.
canceled, sometimes reschedule. Like, I didn't plan, and it was like,
Yeah.
it was beautiful.
I think it's also maybe important to highlight, just because we've been
Sure.
talking about your mindset and like your insights in mind and consciousness through your experience. You are also really nurturing and nourishing yourself based on that wisdom as well. It's not like you were sitting back, lying in bed, waiting for your body to get better. You were in inspired
Mhm.
action
Mhm.
as well throughout it.
And when you say that inspired action, that's beautiful, because in the moment, I just
Yeah.
followed what felt good to do. And I think underline it all, I knew that I could do my part, but the other thing that I know to be true is that mind, universal energy, source, God, whatever anyone wants to call it, that's the source of healing.
Mm. Yeah.
I know that. And so when I follow the guidance, I feel like I'm following that guidance to that best supports me. And that it's that timing that is guiding things. We put our house on the market, and then I got sick, and I had some worried thoughts like, well, I can't have people come in, and how do we tell people they can't come in? You know, like I had a couple of those, and then I was just like,
Mm.
not to my head, to the thoughts. And the day that I felt better, the phone rang and someone wanted to see the house.
Yeah.
Like evidence. That was like evidence to me of the universe taking care of me too.
Yeah. Well, I'm having a awareness of how all of our, I mean, it's
Yeah,
funny to even use the term like an adverse experience, because it's like, it's not,
and an experience. Yeah.
it's just an experience, but all of our experiences, without any, without any exception, all of our experiences are for us.
Mhm.
And on the physical level, practically, physiologically, the virus and bacteria and pathogens, quote unquote, anything that we're exposed to, anything that stresses or strains our body, literally makes us stronger and healthier when we are taking the inspired action and creating an environment within our body that allows that process to happen. And I'm hearing you share also that strength and resilience and insight and peace was a natural byproduct of you being in the moment with your process as well, in the realm of mind.
Mhm.
And it's just nice to trust and see that that is what happens when we are present with ourselves and our experience, whether it be a health challenge, so to speak, quote unquote, or a challenge in other aspects of life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you yeah,
any
just
other
thank you so
thoughts?
much.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
anything that you feel like is left unsaid?
just thank you for giving the opportunity to share this with you and with whoever chooses to listen. And I love what you're doing. I love what you're sharing with the world. I love you, and I'm like just feel so blessed to have this time with you right here, right now.
I'm glad you're
Oh, and
feeling better.
yeah, I guess I want to tell people that I run programs called Grace and Ease with Pain and Disease, and they're small group virtual intensives. My next one happens to be starting June 1st, and it's a really beautiful opportunity in a small group to share experiences and deepen in this understanding that can help us have more grace and ease and gentleness and knowing.
Cool. And yeah, glad that you're feeling better and hope
Mm.
to see you soon. Haven't seen you since all this craziness, but you're moving to Colorado, so
Moving to
that's cool.
Colorado. Yep. Lots of love and many blessings to you, Ben, and everyone else.
Thanks, Mom. I love you. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Peace and love. See you guys next time.